Hello, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Heather.
And today we're going to be looking at tennis, and more specifically, tennis elbow. So tennis elbow is irritation around the lateral epicondyle, which is one of the bony protuberances in your forearm. This is a muscle insertion point for lots of muscles around your forearm, and if they get overused or overworked, they get quite tight and tired, and they can start pulling on this bone. That's when you start to get pain and discomfort around your elbow.
As the name suggests, activities like tennis can aggravate it, but anything that twists or bends the wrist or the elbow, things like typing for long periods, knitting, grappling sports like judo or jiu-jitsu, can be as irritable for it as well.
So just a disclaimer, we're not experts in how to play tennis, but today we're going to give you a few examples of forehand and backhand shots to show the forces that are dissipated through the elbow that can sometimes irritate your pain on the outside of your elbow.
So here Jamie's demonstrating some movements in tennis that can aggravate tennis elbow. You can see him demonstrating backhand, where the muscles on the back of his arm will extend more and probably be most irritable as you're extending through the elbow and at the wrist at the same time. And as the ball contacts the racket, that's sending force up through the arm and into that area of pain. This is where we'd like to look at the whole body movements to make sure that also his shoulder and torso are strong to dissipate those forces. We can also see Jamie demonstrating forehand movements. So in clinic, if we're going to assess someone for tennis elbow, we'll be first looking at if Jamie experiences any pain, if we're palpating or putting pressure on the edge of his elbow, if he's experiencing any pain through here. We're next looking at if he's experiencing any pain on resisted tests. So if we're turning the arm inwards, flexing at the wrist and asking Jamie to push up against me, isolating at the wrist there, and then asking again if he's experiencing any pain on the edge of his elbow there. Finally, we'll look at any stretch response. So with his straight arm and flex through the wrist, does that passive movement bring on any of Jamie's symptoms on the edge of his elbow?
So next we're going to run you through a few different exercises to help stretch, strengthen and release that area of your forearm to try and help with symptoms and reduce your pain.
First exercise we're going to get Jamie to do is a stretch for his forearm. So he's going to start with his arm by his side and then bend through the front of his wrist. If that's feeling okay, you can slowly extend forward and it'll feel more intense onto the outside of his elbow through there. Holding that for about 30 seconds or as much as feels manageable.
So the next exercise we're going to look at is going to help strengthen the extensor compartment of our forearm. So what Heather's going to do is she's going to place her forearm with her wrist hanging over the bench. She's going to extend her wrist, pop her other hand on her wrist and resist that pressure. So she's trying to push her wrist against her other hand. You're going to hold that for about 10-15 seconds or as long as you feel comfortable, and repeating that several times. If we wanted to progress this exercise, we'd then start adding movement to it. So what Heather can next do is she can hold a dumbbell into her hand, starting in an extended position. She's going to slowly lower that dumbbell down to stretch and strengthen the muscles on her forearm.
The next exercise we're going to do is to strengthen the muscles that twist at the forearm and the wrist. And Jamie's going to demonstrate this using his tennis racket. So he's going to grip the tennis racket, balance his arm off the edge, and then we're going to tilt the racket from right to left, controlling the movement really slowly. The longer the lever of what he's using will make it a bit harder. So if this feels a bit intense, we can make it a shorter weight for what feels more comfortable. Feeling the muscles work on the edge of his elbow. So the final thing we can do to help with tennis elbow is some self-massage release to help release some of the tight tissue on the arm. Jamie's going to demonstrate. So with his arm extended, he's going to place some pressure on the muscles in the middle of the muscle belly just here. And then making a fist, flex and extend the wrist. Keeping pressure on there as feels comfortable. He's going to do this for a couple of minutes and move up and down the length of the muscle, feeling for any areas of tension.
So in this month's video workshop, we've looked at tennis elbow and focusing on around tennis and how the forward and backward motions of playing tennis can sometimes irritate the tendons and cause pain. We do stress though that tennis elbow doesn't necessarily have to be caused by tennis and can be caused by any different normal activity that's a repeated movement of the wrist into extension. We've looked at a few different exercises that are going to help strengthen, stretch and release that area of your elbow.
We've looked quite specifically at controlling the symptoms around the elbow, but ideally we'd like to assess the whole body and see what's happening at the shoulder, the torso, and see if there are any mechanics or technique that might be contributing to pain. So if you do feel like you need any extra help, then you can book in at Response Physiotherapy and have a full assessment to see if there's anything else that we could help with your sport that you're doing.
So that's all from us today. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can keep up with the latest information that we post monthly about different pathologies, different pain and different sports. Thank you.